Yeah. It's
So
just,
you were.
all right, give me the 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joe Soares here at BizBuzz headquarters.
Hello, this is Mark Leone, and welcome to BizBuzz here at the Comcast Studios in Milford, Mass. Along with co-host Joe Soares.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of BizBuzz, where we are discovering your local businesses. I'm your host, as always, Joe Soares. Joining me, my co-host here, Mark Leone. And what a show we have for you tonight. A great guest, someone I know personally, Bill Greenberg, from a company called Maxcraft, hidden right off Route 109 in Medway. Bill, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Bill, we were talking a little bit about the show of about the story of Maxcraft. Why don't you tell us about yourself and kind of how you got started in this industry and what Maxcraft does?
All right. Well, we're a wood product manufacturing company, and we've been making wood products for a long time, since about 1986. My father, who was an industrial arts teacher at Holliston High School, started the business, making mangers, stables for Christmas time with the baby Jesus, and he somehow turned making them for raffles and things like that. He ended up somehow selling them to pretty reputable outfits like Hummel, you know, the Hummels.
Yeah, sure.
There's a place called Roman that sells religious supplies to gift shops, church gift shops around the country, and so that's how it all sort of started.
So it's kind of a hobby of his that he had.
It was a little bit of a hobby,
yeah.
And he made some for a few raffles in town, and it really caught on, and then people were...
kidding.
He was actually making them for people, and then had the nerve to go out and try to sell to, you know, the gift industry.
Absolutely,
and he
absolutely.
was successful.
He's successful. Now, this is what you're talking about right here, the stable here.
Yeah, that's what he started the business out with something very similar to that, and we made a lot of them. And so for years, out of his basement and garage, we made these things, and then at some point we were forced to rent a place in the neighborhood. People were a little bit
too big, right?
Yeah, a truck comes in to unload. People are like, hey, what's going on over there? You know, and so then it needed to be sort of moved, relocated. We rented a place, and we were making stables pretty good. He had a good little thing going, and I always helped him. And then from there, we sort of changed our product line over the years. After my father died, we sort of like have changed what we're doing, but this is how it all started.
Yeah, that's a neat story. That's a really neat story. So, you know, looking at this main stable here, what's it looks like? It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts, and you have the equipment to make that a lot easier, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, when we were first started, it was really
tell us about that. When you first started doing this.
When we first started, we were just
using... very labor-intensive, I assume.
Yeah, and we were using tools that you would find typically in somebody's garage or their basement to make these things. But he was pretty handy. He was a talented guy. He was creative, he was a little artistic, and he could take a tool, a basic tool, a basic table saw, a band saw, a sander, and create, you wouldn't believe what my father could create with those tools.
Right.
And this was one of them, you can see, and it was something that caught on, and we sold a lot of them.
Right.
So, you know, we started out like that, and then as time has gone by, we've sort of improved and changed our location, went from the house to renting a spot, and then when we started doing other products, we needed a bigger facility, and we went from renting a place to buying an acre of land and building a building to run our operation.
Right.
Okay. You also brought a few other things that you do.
Right now we're doing stuff for the fence industry. my father got sick, and we were going to stop making mangers. But like I had mentioned to you earlier, one of my friends who I grew up with, really family friends in Medway, who was working for a fence company, got laid off, decided to start his own fence company. And before we could actually shut down our operation of making mangers, when my father was sick, he asked if we could make some post caps for him for fences. You've seen them all around. This is a post cap. It's something that goes on decks and fences, and it just sort of finishes it off. And he needed some of those. He was paying a lot of money for them, and somehow, again, we made them. I was making them on a bandsaw and a sander and a table saw, and made him up a bunch, and he thought they were good, and thought I should show them to other fence companies, and they might be interested as well.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was a school teacher at Arlington High School. I had mentioned that to you. I had been working there for about 10 years, and as an academic
How'd you like
support.
that?
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that job. I love
You
teaching.
miss it?
I miss it terrible. A place where you work with other people who are equal to you, and you can sit down to lunch and have great conversation, and you meet great kids, and it's just
Yeah.
a great experience.
Right, right.
And I did that for 14 years, but after about 10 years, this somehow started. And
You kind of do it on the side.
I was doing it
and
on the
then-
side
yeah.
like my father always did. He
Right.
always had his teaching job, and he on the side created something. And this came up after he got sick. This thing came up, and it was like a gift from God. I thought, oh, I can make some post caps in my garage or my basement, just like my dad while I was teaching.
How ironic is
Right?
that?
I thought this will be great. But this was a little different. This sort of took on a life of its own. This was, I went to 3 fence companies. I was teaching in Arlington. I went to Medford Woburn and Medford Woburn and Arlington, 3 fence companies, and they all bought the caps from me.
Just like
Everybody, they all gave me a chance. Started buying small quantities of caps.
that. What did they like so much about the caps that you were making, maybe that was different from what they had before? Was it anything?
Cheaper.
Oh, okay.
I was doing it for less money than
Okay.
what they were paying.
Yeah.
The competitors had, over the years, edged up their prices to a point that all of a sudden, making very little money doing it, I could do it. And we did it, and I was doing it, and I had one guy working with me. I would, after school, he would be working, and I'd come back, and we were making post caps together. And
You
it
got to be
just-
making a lot of post caps, I'm thinking, right, nowadays.
Well, so what ended up happening was, this guy in Arlington says, go see this guy out in Springfield, in Worcester. The guy out in Worcester says, I know a guy out in Springfield, and I'm driving out there with my caps, and everybody's buying them from me. They're calling ahead saying, I'm sending
True
Billy out to
referral
see you.
success story.
He's making post caps for me now. You gotta, if you're whoever you, give him a try.
And these people are the people that are referring you. They're referring you to their competition, aren't they?
Not they're
No.
but they're all in a like you have an SBA for town or
Yeah,
whatever you have
yeah.
going on. There's also that in the fencing industry, in the
Oh,
lumber
the
industry.
same type
That-
of industry.
there are
trade,
trade
yeah.
shows, and
Trade
people
shows.
know each other, and they may be competitors, but they also can cooperate with each other.
Right.
They cover territories. Their territories are not large. They're very
Right.
their territories are concentrated.
I gotcha.
And so that's what happened. I ended up going, and before I knew it, I was down in Jersey selling post caps
Wow.
to people who were like expecting me to show up. And so anyway, we built the building, bought an acre of land, built a building, quit the teaching job, and now have been trying to improve the process and the equipment. We talked about sort of upgrading the equipment to make things a little bit, now instead of cutting things on a bandsaw and hand sanding them, we have computerized routers that would take a block of wood like this, it would suck it down to the table, and it would automatically, it would be programmed in a computer, and then it will then shape the material.
So it's like a CNC
It
cut?
is a CNC.
Oh, okay.
For woodworking. It's got a big, strong, heavy motor on it, and it has X, Y, and Z axis, and it's dropping down and coming up, and then moving over here and cutting across the other way, and making things to what was the hardest part of the job and most dangerous, now the safest and easiest part of the job.
Okay. So now you go in and you would program that for whatever cut you want?
I would. I've learned how to operate. The guys at the shop now who work for me can operate the machinery, which means sort of loading it, unloading it, maybe changing from one size or style to another size and style. They can do that. They can change that. But when it comes down to sort of programming the machine to do that, that's something that's sort of left to me now at this point.
Yeah.
When it's not that difficult.
Yeah. Amazing the technology, how it's come so far.
Yeah,
and,
that was
makes your job a lot easier. But then again, the equipment's probably pretty pricey to
Yeah.
invest in something like this, I assume.
Yeah, and I wouldn't invest in a piece of machinery hoping it could do something for me that I'm not already doing. When I buy a piece of machinery, it's to sort of improve some operation that I'm doing now, that they're too expensive to for a guy like me to say, oh, I'd love to have a big old, six-headed molder,
Right.
which I have a five-headed molder. But there are other bigger machines that it's hard to justify. It's a very competitive market, and you're competing against things that are coming over from China. So you're trying to.
Yeah, that brings up an excellent point. You had a question, Mark?
Well, no, I was just thinking that I was assuming you could get these from China or any other
Absolutely.
But then again, the nice part about a fence that you look at is that post. So people, even if they got that somewhere else, would want their caps going on their fence to look really nice.
Exactly.
And I noticed that you had like 7 or 8 different ones. So if someone really wanted to dress it up, or on their corners could be different. So why don't you show us a couple of the other ones, just so.
Well, if you wanted to, I just basically what a post cap is I showed you this is sort of a top or the lid, and then there's a frame that you would mount to it, and then it would slip over the post.
Okay.
And the frame is pre-assembled. It's got little clips in it to hold it, and so it's glued and then nailed to the bottom.
Gotcha.
And so they last. It's a relatively simple item, but it lasts a long time, and it's all made out of clear Western red cedar.
Cedar, okay.
And that's and so the fence guys in our area use a lot of cedar, a lot of white cedar, but for some items that they don't want to move or crack or break, red cedar is sort of a very stable wood that they prefer. It's relatively expensive, but it's something that is tested over time, and is sort of they would pay the money to have a Western red cedar cap.
Right, just for the caps at least.
Just for the caps at least.
Because it's durable. And
so then we mount the frame to the cap, and then you can have different you can add different ornaments to it. Here's a little base, and here's a ball, so you could have a cap with a ball on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? That's like a finial,
I've seen
we
that.
call it.
That's pretty popular nowadays.
Yeah, it's something that some people needed or wanted at their entrance, or at, like you said, the corners. It's something that they might want in different places. You can get a little fancier and maybe put, an urn type thing. Somebody might want something like that if they are trying to match something crazy at their house that they might want. And so that's what we do with the post caps, and then I also have a copper
Now, so
cap.
you'll just cut them like that, and then the installer would actually glue them on or something like that?
Yeah, we just sell them by the case and ship them all over, and this is a copper cap. I kind of messed it up there, but
So you buy that copper,
I actually had a die made. I had to have a die made that presses the copper, the flat piece of copper, and the people that made the die for me out in Worcester actually keep the die. They're like metalsmiths. They're people who work in metal all the time, bending wire and doing things for grocery stores and whatnot. And so they keep the die, and then when I need